this, trying to decide on if, I don't know, if I wanted to play it or if I didn't want to play it. I'm going to shut up and get into it. I do believe it is necessary for all of us to know exactly, what kind of we're up against. And honestly, out of curiosity to see how long the daggum guy lasts. So, if you want to hang out here with me, I am alone right now. I've sent out a message if anybody wants to hang out with me because I did struggle with this and not knowing what to do. But I do think that it's necessary to even just see what this guy's saying. So, without further ado, I present Puddinhead. Oh, Lord. And guys, again, if you want to hang out. And I'll probably talk over some of the ridiculous stuff that he says, but we'll see if hopefully this plays through my bot. If not, I'm going to have to share my Zoom and do it.
We have to build back better. We have to compete more.
Sometimes it glitches with the audio. It should hopefully fix itself in a second. If not, I'll share it through my other stuff. Come on, play. Watch it. Look at having audio issues. That does not shock me in the slightest.
On Mars, discovering vaccines, gave us the internet, and so much more. These are investments we made together as one country, and investments that only the government was in a position to make. Time and again, they propel us into the future. That's why I proposed the American Jobs Plan, a once-in-a-generation investment in America itself. This is the largest jobs plan since World War II. It creates jobs to upgrade our transportation infrastructure. Jobs modernizing our roads, bridges, highways. Jobs building ports and airports, rail corridors, transit lines. It's clean water. And today, up to 10 million homes in America and more than 400,000 schools and child care centers have pipes with lead in them, including drinking water. A clear and present danger to our children's health. American Jobs Plan creates jobs replacing 100% of the nation's lead pipes and service lines, so every American can drink clean water. And in the process, we will create thousands and thousands of good-paying jobs. It creates jobs connecting every American with high-speed internet, including 35% of the rural America that still doesn't have it. It's going to help our kids and our businesses succeed in the 21st century economy. And I'm asking the Vice President to lead this effort, if she would, because I know it will get done. Creates jobs building a modern power grid. Our grids are vulnerable to storms, hacks, catastrophic failures with tragic results, as we saw in Texas and elsewhere during the winter storms. The American Jobs Plan will create jobs that lay thousands of miles of transmission lines needed to build a resilient and fully clean grid. We can do that. Look, the American Jobs Plan will help millions of people get back to their jobs and back to their careers. 2 million women have dropped out of the workforce during this pandemic. 2 million. And too often because they couldn't get the care they needed to care for their child or care for an elderly parent who needs help. 800,000 families are on the Medicare waiting list right now to get home care for their aging parent or loved one with disability. If you think it's not important, check out in your own district, Democrat or Republican. Democrat or Republican voters. Their great concern, almost as much as their children, is taking care of an elderly loved one who can't be left alone. Medicaid contemplated it, but this plan is going to help those families and create jobs for our caregivers with better wages and better benefits, continuing a cycle of growth. For too long, we've failed to use the most important word when it comes to meeting the climate crisis: jobs. 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 For me, when I think climate change, I think jobs. The American Jobs Plan will put engineers and construction workers to work building more energy-efficient buildings and homes. Electrical workers, IBEW members installing 500,000 charging stations along our highways so we can own the electric car market. Farmers planting cover crops so they can reduce the carbon dioxide in the air and get paid for doing it. Look, think about it. There is simply no reason why the blades for wind turbines can't be built in Pittsburgh instead of Beijing. No reason. None. No reason. So, folks, there's no reason why American workers can't lead the world in the production of electric vehicles and batteries. I mean, there is no reason. We have the capacity. We're the brightest, best trained people in the world. The American Jobs Plan is going to create millions of good paying jobs, jobs Americans can raise a family on. As my dad would then say, with a little breathing room. And all the investments in the American Job Plan will be guided by one principle: buy American. Buy American.
And how this works, if y'all are not familiar or you're new here, is when something plays to the bot, we can talk over it and it mutes it down. I do want us to hear a lot of what he has to say, because I'm sure you all know it'll be ridiculous. But if we do have some commentary to add or whatever, we'll try to do that. But I'm really curious to see how long he can stand there. Hey, Breaking.
That's the way it's supposed to be, and it will be in this administration. And I made it clear to all my cabinet people, their ability to give exemptions has been strenuously limited. It will be American products. Now, I know some of you at home are wondering whether these jobs are for you. So many of you, so many of the folks I grew up with, feel left behind, forgotten, in an economy that's so rapidly changing. It's frightening. I want to speak directly to you, because you think about it. That's what people are most worried about. Can I fit in? Independent experts estimate the American Jobs Plan will add millions of jobs and trillions of dollars to economic growth in the years to come. It is an 8-year program. These are good-paying jobs that can't be outsourced. Nearly 90% of the infrastructure jobs created in the American Jobs Plan do not require a college degree. 75% don't require an associate's degree. The American Jobs Plan is a blue-collar blueprint to build America. That's what it is.
Their days just confused, Robin. Thank you, Miss Mamie.
And it recognizes something I've always said in this chamber and the other. Good guys and women on Wall Street, but Wall Street didn't build this country. The middle class built the country, and unions built the middle class.
Oh, there we go with the unions.
That's why I'm.
Oh, no, did it stop playing? Oh, that's curious. Let me get that back up there. Hold on.
One more time.
Yeah, that's weird that just stopped playing like that though. I mean, hey, I guess it can happen. Let's see what happens this time. Might have to reboot the bot.
No one working 40 hours a week should live below the poverty line.
Oh, does it keep kicking it out? One more time. Well, I'll play it straight through my Zoom if you think you're gonna mess with me. So spare me.
And finally,
I'm glad all y'all can see this.
So I don't think we have audio yet, though.
Well, you know how it takes a second. Let me mute up. Let's see if it'll kick in. I'll play it through my Zoom. I don't care. Oh. I'm gonna try one more time, guys. I'm sorry. Well, yeah, we can. You like us talking, so we're gonna talk. Listen, he already said something to his wife, and he was like, "There's my first lady. I'm her husband." Like, like people didn't know that. No, I'm her husband. Telling you, I'm more curious to see how long this guy's gonna last.
the Secretary of Defense can tell you, and those of you on work in NASA.
All right, forget it. I won't rely on you then.
Led to everything from the discovery of the internet to GPS and so much more that's enhanced our security. The National Institute of Health, the NIH, I believe, should create a similar advanced research projects agency for health.
Oh, it's already wavering. Buzzer, buzzer, buzzer.
It would have a singular purpose: to develop breakthroughs to prevent, detect, and treat diseases like Alzheimer's, diabetes, and cancer. I'll still never forget when we passed the cancer proposal in the last year as vice president. Almost $9 million going to NIH.
He was vice president last year. Did anybody hear that?
I'll never forget you standing, Mitch, and saying, "Name it after my deceased son." It meant a lot. But so many of us have deceased sons, daughters, and relatives who died of cancer. I can think of no more worthy investment. I know of nothing that is more bipartisan. So let's end cancer as we know it. It's within our power. It's within our power to do it. Investments in jobs and infrastructure like the ones we're talking about have often had bipartisan support in the past. Vice President Harris and I met regularly in the Oval Office with Democrats and Republicans and discussed the jobs plan. And I applaud a group of Republican senators who just put forward their own proposal. So let's get to work. I wanted to lay out before the Congress my plan before we got into the deep discussions. I'd like to meet with those who have ideas that are different, they think are better. I welcome those ideas. But the rest of the world is not waiting for us. I just want to be clear. From my perspective, doing nothing is not an option.
As the people that have never gone to the freaking border and his VP is supposed to be in charge of it.
Look, we can't be so busy competing with one another that we forget the competition that we have with the rest of the world to win the 21st century. Secretary Blinken can tell you, I spent a lot of time with President Xi. Traveled over 17,000 miles with him. Spent, they tell me, over 24 hours in private discussions with him. When he called to congratulate him, we had a 2-hour discussion. He's deadly earnest about becoming the most significant, consequential nation in the world. He and others, autocrats, think that democracy can't compete in the 21st century with autocracies because it takes too long to get consensus. To win that competition for the future, in my view, we also need to make a once-in-a-generation investment in our families and our children. That's why I've introduced the American Families Plan tonight, which addresses 4 of the biggest challenges facing American families and in turn America. First is access to good education. When this nation made 12 years of public education universal in the last century, it made us the best educated, best prepared nation in the world. It's, I believe, the overwhelming reason that propelled us to where we got in the 20th century. But the world's caught up or catching up. They're not waiting. I would say parenthetically, if we were sitting down, we set a bipartisan committee together and said, okay, we're going to decide what we do in terms of government providing for free education. I wonder whether we'd think, as we did in the 20th century, that 12 years is enough in the 21st century. I doubt it. 12 years is no longer enough today to compete with the rest of the world in the 21st century. That's why my American Families Plan guarantees 4 additional years of public education for every person in America, starting as early as we can. The great universities in this country have conducted studies of the last 10 years. It shows that adding 2 years of universal high-quality preschool for every 3-year-old and 4-year-old, no matter what background they come from, puts them in a position to be able to compete all the way through 12 years and increases exponentially their prospect of graduating and going on beyond graduation. The research shows when a young child goes to school, not daycare, they're far more likely to graduate from high school and go to college or something after high school. When you add 2 years of free community college on top of that, you begin to change the dynamic.
Guess what? The state of Tennessee already offers free 2-year community college, even with the lowest GPA. Why? Because we're a red state.
Tribal colleges, minority-serving institutions. The reason is they don't have the endowments, but their students
no state income tax.
About cybersecurity, just as capable of learning about metallurgy, all the things that are going on that provide those jobs of the future. Jill is a community college professor who teaches today as First Lady.
Look at this. And remember, though, when it was Trump's impeachment, you couldn't fit a damn hair in that place because, there was no concern about COVID. They were preaching about Black Lives Matter Antifa protests. Oh, those are perfectly okay. But we can't have a bunch of people in this room to watch him fall over his face.
If I've heard it once, I've heard it 1,000 times. Joe, any country that out-educates us is going to out-compete us. She'll be deeply involved in leading this effort. Thank you, Jill.
Yeah. What about the rolling back of any Excel and mathematical course right now that they're trying to push through where there's no more Excel math taught at all?
We guarantee what I'm proposing.
See, this is where I'm careful because I could
that low and middle income families will pay no more than 7% of their income for high quality care for children up to the age of 5. The most hard-pressed working families won't have to spend a dime. Third, the American Families Plan will finally provide up to 12 weeks of paid leave and medical leave, family medical leave. We're one of the few industrial countries in the world. No one should have to choose between a job and a paycheck, or taking care of themselves and their loved ones, or parent, or spouse, or child. And fourth, the American Family Plan puts directly into the pockets of millions of Americans. In March, we expanded the tax credit for every child in a family, up to $3,000 per child if you're under 6 years of age. Over 6 years of age, and $3,600 for children over 6 years of age. With 2 parents, 2 kids, that's $7,200 in the pockets that are going to help take care of your family. And that will help more than 65 million children and help cut child care poverty in half. And we can afford it. So we did that in the last piece of legislation we passed. But let's extend that child care tax credit at least through the end of 2025. The American Rescue Plan lowered health care premiums for 9 million Americans who buy their coverage under the Affordable Care Act. I know that's really popular this side of the aisle. But let's make that provision permanent so their premiums don't go back up. In addition to my family's plan, I'm going to work with Congress to address this year other critical priorities for American families. The Affordable Care Act has been a lifeline for millions of Americans, protecting people with pre-existing conditions, protecting women's health, and the pandemic has demonstrated how badly it's needed. Let's lower deductibles for working families on the Affordable Care Act. And let's lower prescription drug costs. We know how to do this. The last president had that as an objective.
Exactly. Stewart said division. That's how you do it.
In America. In fact, we pay the highest prescription drug prices of anywhere in the world, right here in America. Nearly 3 times for the same drug, nearly 3 times what other countries pay. We have to change that, and we can. Let's do what we talked about for all the years I was down here in this body, in Congress. Let's give Medicare the power to save hundreds of billions of dollars by negotiating lower drug prescription prices. And by the way, it won't just help people on Medicare. Lower prescription drug costs for everyone. And the money we save, which is billions of dollars, can go to strengthen the Affordable Care Act and expand Medicare coverage benefits without costing taxpayers an additional penny. It's within our power to do it. Let's do it now. We've talked about it long enough, Democrats and Republicans. Let's get it done this year. This is all about a simple premise. Health care should be a right, not a privilege in America. So, how do we pay for my jobs and family plan? I made it clear we can do it without increasing the deficits. Let's start with what I will not do. I will not impose any tax increase on people making less than $400,000. But it's time for corporate America and the wealthiest 1% of Americans to just begin to pay their fair share. Just their fair share. Sometimes I have arguments with my friends in the Democratic Party. I think you should be able to become a billionaire and a millionaire, but pay your fair share. A recent study shows that 55 of the nation's biggest corporations paid zero federal tax last year. Those 55 corporations made in excess of $40 billion in profit. A lot of companies also evade taxes through tax havens in Switzerland and Bermuda and the Cayman Islands. And they benefit from tax loopholes and deductions for offshoring jobs and shifting profits overseas. It's not right. We're going to reform corporate taxes so they pay their fair share and help pay for the public investments their businesses will benefit from as well. We're going to reward work, not just wealth. We take the top tax bracket for the wealthiest 1% of Americans, those making over $400,000 or more, back up to where it was when George W. Bush was president, when he started, 39.6%. That's where it was when George W. was president. We're going to get rid of the loopholes, allow Americans to make more than $1 million a year and pay a lower tax rate on their capital gains than Americans who receive a paycheck. We're only going to affect 0.3% of all Americans by that action, 0.3%. And the IRS is going to crack down on millionaires and billionaires who cheat on their taxes. It's estimated to be billions of dollars by think tanks that are left, right, and center. I'm not looking to punish anybody. But I will not add a tax burden, additional tax burden to the middle class in this country. They're already paying enough. I believe what I propose is fair, fiscally responsible, and it raises revenue to pay for the plans I propose and will create millions of jobs that will grow the economy and enhance our financial standing in the country. When you hear someone say, they don't want to raise taxes on the wealthiest 1% or corporate America, ask them, whose taxes you want to raise? Instead, whose are going to cut? Look, the big tax cut of 2017. Remember, it was supposed to pay for itself. That was how it was sold. And generate vast economic growth. Instead, it added $2 trillion to the deficit. It was a huge windfall for corporate America and those at the very top. Instead of using the tax saving to raise wages and invest in research and development, it poured billions of dollars into the pockets of CEOs. In fact, the pay gap between CEOs and their workers is now among the largest in history. According to one study, CEOs make 320 times what the average worker in their corporation makes. It used to be below 100. The pandemic has only made things worse. 20 million Americans lost their job in the pandemic, working and middle-class Americans. At the same time, roughly 650 billionaires in America saw their net worth increase by more than $1 trillion in the same exact period. Let me say it again. 650 people increased their wealth by more than $1 trillion during this pandemic. And they're now worth more than $4 trillion. My fellow Americans, trickle down. Trickle down economics has never worked. And it's time to grow the economy from the bottom and the middle out. You know, there's a broad consensus of economists left, right, and center, and they agree what I'm proposing will help create millions of jobs and generate historic economic growth. These are among the highest values investments we can make as a nation. I've often said our greatest strength is the power of our example, not just the example of our power. In my conversations with world leaders, and I've spoken to over 38, 40 of them now, I've made it known. I've made it known that America's back. And you know what they say? The comment I hear most of all from them is they say, we see America's back, but for how long? But for how long? My fellow Americans, we have...
I need a list of all those people that say that we're back.
We're back to stay, and that we aren't going to go it alone. We're going to do it by leading with our allies. No one nation can deal with all the crises of our time, from terrorism to nuclear proliferation, mass migration, cybersecurity, climate change, as well as what we're experiencing now, the pandemics. There's no wall high enough to keep any virus out. And our own vaccine supply, as it grows to meet our needs,
Wow.
and we're meeting them,
Well, they need you.
become an arsenal for vaccines for other countries, just as America was an arsenal for democracy for the world, and in consequence influence the world. But every American will have access before that occurs. Every American will have access to be fully covered by COVID-19 from the vaccines we have. Look, the climate crisis is not our fight alone, it's a global fight. The United States accounts
Oh, here we go. Bill Gates' talking point.
for carbon emissions. The rest of the world accounts for 85%. That's why I kept my commitment to rejoin the Paris Accord, because if we do everything perfectly, it's not going to only matter. I kept my commitment to convene a climate summit right here in America with all the major economies of the world: China, Russia, India, European Union. And I said I'd do it in my first 100 days. I want to be very blunt about it. I had my attempt was to make sure that the world could see there was a consensus, that we are at an inflection point in history. The consensus is if we act to save the planet, we can create millions of jobs and economic growth and opportunity and raise the standard of living of almost everyone around the world. If you watched any of it and you were all busy, I'm sure you didn't have much time. That's what virtually every nation said, even the ones that aren't doing their fair share. The investments I propose tonight also advance a foreign policy, in my view, that benefits the middle class. That means making sure every nation plays by the same rules in the global economy, including China. In my discussion with President Xi, I told him, we welcome the competition. We're not looking for conflict. But I made absolutely clear that we will defend America's interest across the board. America will stand up to unfair...
And they laughed in your face because you can't even remember the password to your cell phone.
...like subsidies from state to state-owned operations and enterprises, and the theft of American technology and intellectual property. I also told President Xi that we'll maintain a strong military presence in the Indo-Pacific, just as we do with NATO and Europe. Not to start a conflict, but to prevent one. I told them what I've said to many world leaders, that America will not back away from our commitments, our commitment to human rights and fundamental freedoms, and to our alliances. And I pointed out to him,
Except when it comes to the southern border, you sure have forgot about that place.
could remain silent when basic human rights are being so blatantly violated. An American president has to represent the essence of what our country stands for. America is an idea, the most unique idea in history. We are created, all of us, equal. It's who we are. And we cannot walk away from that principle and, in fact, say we're dealing with the American idea. With regard to Russia, I know it concerns some of you, but I made very clear to Putin that we're not going to seek escalation, but their actions will have consequences. They turn out to be true, and they turned out to be true. So I responded directly and proportionately to Russia's interference in our elections and the cyber attacks on our government and our business. They did both of these things, and I told them we would respond, and we have. But we can also cooperate when it's our mutual interest. We did it when we extended the New START Treaty on nuclear arms, and we're working to do it on climate change. But he understands we will respond. On Iran and North Korea, nuclear programs that present serious threats to American security and the security of the world. We're going to be working closely with our allies to address the threats posed by both of these countries through diplomacy as well as stern deterrence. And American leadership means ending the forever war in Afghanistan. We have.
Well, they sure are, because they're dragging them all around to protect Capitol Hill.
We have, without hyperbole, the greatest fighting force in the history of the world. I'm the first president in 40 years and knows what it means to have a son serving in a war zone. Today, we have service members serving in the same.
Yeah, let's talk about your other son, Joe.
We have service members in Afghanistan who are not yet born on 9/11. The war in Afghanistan, as we remember the debates here, were never meant to be multi-generational undertakings of nation building. We went to Afghanistan to get the terrorists who attacked us on 9/11. And we said we would follow Osama bin Laden to the gates of hell to do it. If you've been in the upper Konar Valley, you've kind of seen the gates of hell. And we delivered justice to bin Laden. We degraded the terrorist threat of al-Qaeda in Afghanistan. And after 20 years of valor, and sacrifice, it's time.
Now here's a good time to remind you all that Obama said that getting rid of ISIS and al-Qaeda would take generations, and Trump did it in 1 year.
Even as we do, we'll maintain over-the-horizon capacity to suppress future threats to the homeland. And make no mistake, in 20 years, terrorism has metastasized. The threat has evolved way beyond Afghanistan. Those of you in the intelligence committees, the foreign relations committee, defense committees, you know well, we have to remain vigilant against the threats to the United States wherever they come from. Al-Qaeda and ISIS are in Yemen, Syria, Somalia, other places in Africa, in the Middle East, and beyond. And we won't ignore what our intelligence agencies have determined to be the most lethal terrorist threat to the homeland today. White supremacy is terrorism. We're not going to ignore that either. My fellow Americans, look, we have to come together to heal the soul of this nation. It was nearly a year ago before her father's funeral when I spoke with Gianna Floyd, George Floyd's young daughter. She's a little tyke, so I was kneeling down to talk to her.
Here we go with the virtue signaling.
So I could look her in the eye. She looked at me, she said, "My daddy changed the world." Well, after the conviction of George Floyd's murderer, we can see how right she was if we have the courage to act.
You know whose eyes he's not looking in? Any of those kids at the southern border that are getting escaped for 2 months.
Black Americans. Now's our opportunity to make some real progress. The vast majority of men and women wearing a uniform and a badge serve our communities, and they serve them honorably. I know them. I know they want.
Everybody in chat saying he sniffed her. Bernadette and caffeine. He sniffed her too. Oh, so did Sergeant Peterson.
I know they want to help meet this moment as well. My fellow Americans, we have to come together to rebuild trust between law enforcement and the people they serve, to root out systemic racism in our criminal justice system, and to enact police reform.
Well, then you need to talk to Maxine flipping Waters. And don't even start with that shit. He's been out there propagating hate for 2 years.
And are engaged in a very productive discussions with Democrats in the Senate. We need to work together to find a consensus. But let's get it done next month, by the first anniversary of George Floyd's death.
Do these people really think we don't have a memory?
The country supports this reform, and Congress should act. We have a giant opportunity to bend the arc of the moral universe toward justice, real justice. And with the plans outlined tonight, we have a real chance to root out systemic racism that plagues America and American lives in other ways. A chance to deliver real equity, good jobs, good schools, affordable housing, clean air, clean water, being able to generate wealth and pass it down through generations because you have an access to purchase a house. Real opportunities in the lives of more Americans, Black, white, Latino, Asian Americans, Native Americans. Look, I also want to thank the United States Senate for voting 94-1 to pass the COVID-19 Hate Crimes Act to protect Asian American and Pacific Islanders. You acted decisively. You can see on television the viciousness of the hate crimes we've seen over the past year and for too long. I urge the House to do the same and send that legislation to my desk, which I will gladly, anxiously sign. I also hope Congress will get to my desk the Equality Act to protect
He's slipping.
LGBTQ Americans. To all transgender Americans watching at home, especially young people, you're so brave. I want you to know your president has your back. Another thing, let's authorize the Violence Against Women Act, which has been law for 27 years. "27 years ago, I wrote it. It'll close the act that has to be authorized now, will close the boyfriend loophole to keep guns out of the hands of abusers. The court order said this is an abuser. You can't own a gun. It's to close that loophole that existed.
Here we go. Here we go with the fake news. We already have laws against people getting arms that have a record. You moron.
By an intimate partner every month in America. 50 a month. Let's pass it and save some lives. And I need not tell anyone this, but gun violence has become an epidemic in America. The flag at the White House was still flying at half-mast for the 8 victims of the mass shooting in Georgia, when 10 more lives were taken in a mass shooting in Colorado. And in the week in between those two events, 250 other Americans were shot dead in the streets of America. 250 shot dead. I know how hard it is to make progress on this issue. In the 90s,
I'm talking about where that's at. Talk about where that's at. Talk about Chicago, strictest gun laws. Talk about where that's at.
that can be fired off in seconds.
Want to talk about what kind of crime that is? Since race seems to matter so much.
Check out the report over 10 years. But in the early 2000s, the law expired. We've seen bloodshed since. I'm not saying if the law continued, we wouldn't see bloodshed. More than 2 weeks ago in the Rose Garden, surrounded by some of the bravest people I know, the survivors and families who lost loved ones to gun violence, I laid out several of the Department of Justice actions that are being taken to impact on this epidemic. One of them is banning so-called ghost guns. These are homemade guns built from a kit that includes directions how to finish the firearm. The parts have no serial numbers, so they show up at crime scenes and they can't be traced. The buyers of these ghost gun kits aren't required to pass any background check. Anyone.
Yeah, let's get some facts. How many times ghost guns commit a crime? How many? How many times you ever heard of a ghost gun in any kind of article? You know how many crimes were used in Fast and Furious? All the guns that Biden and Obama sent down in the southern border. You know how many times those guns have been found and committed crimes with the drug cartel, MS-13?
Look,
Come on.
I don't want to become confrontational, but we need more Senate Republicans to join the overwhelming majority of Democratic colleagues and close the loopholes required in background check purchases of guns. We need a ban on assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. And don't tell me it can't be done. We did.
Again, assault weapons are not legal.
They'll tell you there's no possible justification for having 100 rounds in a weapon. What do you think, deer wearing Kevlar vests? They'll tell you that there are too many people today who are able to buy a gun, but shouldn't be able to buy a gun. These kinds of reasonable reforms have overwhelming support from the American people, including many gun owners. The country supports reform, and Congress should act.
No, they don't. Numbers slipping. Just got a report yesterday.
And no amendment to the Constitution is absolute. You can't yell fire in a crowded theater.
You hear that about the Constitution?
There were certain guns, weapons, that could not be owned by Americans. Certain people could not own those weapons ever.
There are people that own tanks. There are people that own 50 cows. There's a man that has a bigger fleet of warplanes than there are in some militaries, small countries' militaries right now in America. That is bullshit. They wrote a letter to the president back in the day to see if they could even have cannons on their ships. And he said, yep, all firearms. He is lying.
For more than 30 years, politicians have talked about immigration reform, and we've done nothing about it. It's time to fix it. On day one of my presidency, I kept my commitment and sent a comprehensive immigration bill to the United States Congress. If you believe we need to secure the border, pass it because it has a lot of money for high-tech border security. If you believe in a pathway to citizenship, pass it. It's over 11 million undocumented folks, the vast majority of here.
They just skipping right over what's going on at the border now.
We can actually, if you actually want to solve a problem, I've sent a bill to take a close look at it. We also have to get
solve a problem, follow the law.
Fleeing, particularly to our southern border from Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador.
Because you told them to.
Political instability, hunger, hurricanes, earthquakes, natural disasters. When I was president, when I was vice president, the president asked me to focus on providing help needed to address the root causes of migration. And it helped keep people in their own countries instead of being forced to leave. The plan was working, but the last administration decided it was not worth it. I'm restoring the program, and as Vice President,
the only one forcing them to leave is the drug cartels that are getting $9,000 a pop.
I have absolute confidence you'll get the job done. Now look, if you don't like my plan, let's at least pass what we all agree on. Congress needs to pass legislation this year to finally secure protection for dreamers. The young people have only known America as their home. And permanent protection for immigrants who are here on temporary protective status who came from countries beset by man-made and natural-made violence and disaster, as well as a pathway to citizenship for foreign workers who put food on our tables. Look, immigrants have done so much for America during this pandemic and throughout our history. The country supports immigration reform. We should act. Let's argue over it. Let's debate it. But let's act. And if we truly want to restore the soul of America, we need to protect the sacred right to vote. Most people more people voted in the last presidential election than any time in American history. in the middle of the worst pandemic ever.
Oh, we want to get into the vote, huh?
Instead, it's being attacked. Congress should pass H.R. 1 and the John Lewis Voting Rights Act and send it to my desk right away. The country supports it, and Congress should act now.
No, we don't. Look at the polls.
Look, in conclusion, as we gather here tonight, the image of a violent mob assaulting this Capitol, desecrating our democracy, remain vivid in all our minds. Lives were put at risk, many of your lives. Lives were lost. Extraordinary courage was summoned. The insurrection was an existential crisis, a test of whether our democracy could survive, and it did. But the struggle is far from over. The question of whether our democracy will long endure is both ancient and urgent. As old as our republic, still vital today. Can our democracy deliver on its promise that all of us, created equal in the image of God, had a chance to lead lives of dignity, respect, and possibility? Can our democracy deliver to the most pressing needs of our people? Can our democracy overcome the lies, anger, hate, and fears that have pulled us apart? America's adversaries, the autocrats of the world, are betting we...
Anger, hate, and fear.
I promise you...
Wonder what party's been pushing that.
They believe we're too full of anger and division and rage. They look at the images of the mob that assaulted the Capitol as proof that the sun is setting on American democracy. But they're wrong.
Notice he says anything about the federal government being federal buildings being attacked, about Portland, Seattle, Washington when they tried to burn down the 200-year-old church, Antifa, Black Lives Matter, trying to beat federal agents over the head with hammers. Yeah, none of that's been the kids that got shot in shop where they were just handing out firearms. We bring about that up.
We're delivering real results to people. They can see it, feel it in their own lives. Opening doors of opportunity, guaranteeing some more fairness and justice. That's the essence of America.
Yeah, I guess who also started opportunity zones? Wasn't you?
Our Constitution opens with the words, as trite as it sounds, we the people. Well, it's time to remember that we the people are the government. You and I. Not some...
Whoa.
Capital.
Oh, that's a soundbite. We the people are the government?
It's we the people. In another era, when our democracy was tested, Franklin Roosevelt reminded us, in America, we do our part. We all do our part. That's all I'm asking. That we do our part, all of us. That if we do that, we will meet the center challenge of the age by proving that democracy is durable and strong. Autocrats will not win the future. We will. America will. And the future belongs to America. As I stand here tonight before you in a new and vital hour of life and democracy of our nation, and I can say with absolute confidence, I have never been more confident or optimistic about America. Not because I'm president, because of what's happening with the American people. We've stared into the abyss of insurrection and autocracy, pandemic and pain, and we, the people, did not flinch. At the very moment our adversaries were certain we'd pull apart and fail, we came together, we united. With light and hope, we summoned a new strength, new resolve to position us to win the competition of the 21st century. On our way to a union more perfect, more prosperous, and more just, as one people, one nation, and one America. Folks, as I told every world leader I've ever met with over the years, it's never, ever, ever been a good bet to bet against America, and it still isn't. We're the United States of America. There is not a single thing, nothing beyond our capacity. We can do whatever we set our minds to if we do it together. So let's begin to get together. God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Thank you for your patience.
Oh, that's hilarious.
I don't see Nancy tearing up the script like she did with DJT.
Mm.
That was the
Oh, I
biggest
wonder if he
farce I've ever
stumbles out of there.
witnessed.
Well, I wonder if he stumbles out of there. How many
Doop-de-derp.
times you gonna? Huh?
Derp-de-derp.
Oh my lord, that's a
Train,
nightmare.
train wreck.
There goes his face mask as he turns around and shakes both of their hands. I can't. I just watched a flipping segment here. I'll stop this now. I watched a segment on the CDC, the director of the CDC, coming out and literally made 0 sense. Where she said, exactly, Hazel said, "Thank you for your patience." Where she come out and said that people that get vaccinated need to continue to wear their mask. Listen, you can't make this up. I can play you the clip. Need to continue to wear their masks because out of fear that the other people that are unvaccinated that are around that are not wearing masks might give it to each other. Yes, you heard me correct. They might give it to each other. Therefore, the vaccinated other person needs to make sure they wear a mask. Like these people have, there's no, I mean, they're flinging out shit so haphazardly they can't even keep up themselves, and they're saying the dumbest crap you could imagine. Exactly, like Bernadette said, "No, God bless America." Oh no, after what the Catholic Church has just said about them not taking communion, because of his pro-abortion stance, goes against everything the Catholic Church stands for. They could have a problem there.
Well,
And I got to say this, I appreciate everybody too hanging out here for this because I really struggled with, was I going to play it? Was I not going to play it? And then Breaking sent me something about Tim Scott, supposedly his statement. And I'll try to pull that up. That's what most people were curious to hear. Go ahead, Breaking.
yeah, well, you pull that up. I think one thing that probably we, the people, can rightfully do at this point is, if we get enough people together, I think we could rightfully sue the government in a class action because basically they're trying to impose a religion on us. And that violates our First Amendment. And the religion that I speak of here is the worship of government and the CDC and their edicts and thou shalt bow to the God, your government. Well, no, I think we have this little 5-part portion of the First Amendment that says we have the freedom of religion built into that. And basically, you're forcing us to bow to your religion, to bow to your mandates. And so that's a clear violation.
I think what's scary and alarming to me is when he said that, made that comment about we the people are the government. Did you hear him say that? We the people are the government.
Yeah. Yeah, Hazel,
Yeah.
I agree. A friend of mine decided EMSM's info is correct and got the jab. I told her we can only stay in contact via phone. That's probably a good idea because as what people probably are not fully aware, whether this is a vaccine, depending on which version of the jab you get, if it's a Moderna or Johnson & Johnson, or if you get the BioNTech, or if you get the AstraZeneca version, which is the gene therapy. It's not a vaccine, per their own wording in their S1 statements to the SEC. Little do people realize that these things shed, and they will continue to shed for a period of up to about 14 days. You can do your research on this from previous vaccines. It is a danger to those who are unvaccinated because we have no idea what the hell is inside these things at all. And it is a danger to those that are unvaxxed. And, SoCo and I have talked about having a special here at some point here, once we get our ducks in order here, talking about the reproductivity side of the effects of these vaccines. And I've got a lot of research in that over the years on things like 5G and glyphosate and the impact on women's health, reproductive health, men's reproductive health, you name it. And I'm going to assume and go out on a limb and say that all of this plays right into that hand of their luxurious idea of population reduction, their Agenda 2030, the fact that Bill Gates is eugenicist and everything else that entails. So stay tuned in that regard.
Okay, here is some from the excerpt. It says it's excerpts of Senator Tim Scott's response tonight. It says locking vulnerable kids out of the classroom is locking adults out of their future. Our public schools should have reopened months ago. Other countries did. Private and religious schools did. Science has shown for months that schools are safe, but too often powerful grown-ups set science aside, and kids like me were left behind. The clearest case for school choice in our life. This is the clearest case for school choice in our lifetimes. This should be a joyful springtime for our nation. This administration inherited a tide that they had already turned. The coronavirus is on the run. Thanks to Operation Warp Speed and the Trump administration, our country is flooded with safe and effective vaccines. Thanks to our bipartisan work last year, job openings are rebounding. So why do we feel so divided and anxious? A nation with so much cause for hope should not feel so heavy laden. Just before COVID, we had the most inclusive economy in my lifetime, the lowest unemployment ever recorded for African Americans, Hispanics, and Asian Americans, the lowest for women in nearly 70 years. Wages were growing faster for the bottom 25% than the top 25%. That happened because Republicans focused on expanding opportunity for all Americans. We passed opportunity zones, criminal justice reform, and permanent funding for historically Black colleges and universities for the first time ever. We fought the drug epidemic, rebuilt our military, and cut taxes for working families and single moms like mine. Our best future won't come from Washington schemes or socialist dreams. It will come from you, the American people. And I have to say this because I responded to this nitwit. This woman, I called it over here on the side, but right below it, it says, Scott is wrong. Pfizer wasn't part of Warp Speed. The Trump caused tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of deaths and ridiculed mask wearing. Schools are reopening under Biden. Goodness knows why Scott would parrot this nonsense. Needless to say, this woman right here, never Trump, pro-democracy opinion writer at Washington Post, MSNBC contributor. If right doesn't matter, we are lost. She's going to say, if right doesn't matter, we are lost. And this woman went out here and spewed this nonsense. I said, no, China is the reason why we had all those deaths because they freaking lied. And again, this is why nobody trusts the media. This woman brags about being a contributor and a writer at Washington Post, and this is what she wrote below his statement. They are partisan hacks. Period. So that's Tim Scott's thing. Just over it.
Syracuse says, I tried to tell my son and his new wife not to get vaxxed, but they didn't. Well, I hate to say this, but chances are if they were to ever try to reproduce, obviously, that they're going to have significant issues in trying to get pregnant at that point, unfortunately. But this is what they want, because all you have to do, folks, look at the Georgia Guidestones. 500 million is what they want to get down to. And what a perfect way to do it, through a jab and whatever sort of concoction of crap is inside these things. Couple that with, all the GMOs, all the crap that's sprayed on non-nutritious things that we ingest. Couple that with 5G, which, there's not a lot of stuff out there. It's a little bit nebulous as to the impact of 5G and all this stuff. But I tend to agree with the Sherry Tenpennies and folks that say wait 6 months to a year and see what happens to these folks that have gotten the jab and what's going to happen. I think it's going to be profound.
For a bit of good news, here Google is getting sued over security flaw in their COVID-19 contact tracing technology used by 28 million Americans for exposing Android users' data to third-party apps. Did you know that? Google's being sued over security flaw. 2 people are suing them. Apparently, it uses Bluetooth technology to alert users if they come into contact with someone that tests positive. Oh, that's not any HIPAA violation at all. Dozens of states started using that technology. California, New York, Michigan, Virginia, Utah, and Pennsylvania. See a trend there? The same people, these are some of the same people that slung COVID patients into nursing homes, just FYI. It says more than 28 million people in the U.S. downloaded contact tracing apps that use GAEN. And It argues that Google had assured it completely safeguards sensitive information involved with contact tracing. However, because Google's implementation of GAEN allows the sensitive contact tracing data to be placed on a device system's log and provides dozens or even hundreds of third-party access to the system logs, Google has exposed GAEN participants' private, personal, and medical information associated with contact tracing, including notifications to Android devices using potential exposure. I'm going to tell you something right now. I have never received in the last 3 weeks, and I don't even have this downloaded or anything. In the last 3 weeks, more messages on my cell phone in the form of text messages from people telling me I've won something, or my UPS package is here, or Amazon has something they want to tell me. All of it's scam artists. Scams, the scams they use most of them are in India. That's just facts. But that's scary. That's scary because I'm pretty cautious in what I sign up for. So something I've signed up for we'll say the last month, they have sold my information like probably everybody else's. And that's how those people get your information. They go buy these big ass lists from these companies that say they protect your information when they don't. And then the government signed a bill, I think it was even in 2017 or 2018, saying that they could do it. They could sell your information. Did you know that?
Speaking of text, I got this text the other day, unsolicited, mind you. Hello, this is David from Online Pharmacy. We are offering medications and cheap prices. We have Tramadol, Xanax, Soma, Ambien, Hydro, etc. That was all I got. Unsolicited, didn't ask for it. So we got pill pushers coming at us in all directions.
Well, it's getting worse. This is even, we're going to talk left. This is from CBS, confirmed. A menthol cigarette ban is expected soon from Biden admin and will take effect immediately for 20 million menthol users in U.S. Public health experts support ban. The ACLU has concerns over policing a ban. Number one, banning cigarettes. What's next? Alcohol? What's next? Half the pharmaceuticals on the market? Like something has got to change here. This is becoming ridiculous. It's where now they're dictating to you what's good for you. Are we going to shut down McDonald's and Burger King and Crystals and Taco Bell and all these other places that serve high calorie, high fat foods? Because that's not great for your health.
Well, not only is it the nanny state trying to determine and guide and shepherd you, the little people, throughout every single portion of your life. But isn't that kind of racist to go after that? I mean, who ultimately smokes menthol cigarettes? I hate to be someone who goes there, but predominantly the folks that I've ever come across that smoke mostly menthols are of African descent. I could be wrong.
Crowder put out a poll on Twitter that I'll just show you. Pretty freaking hilarious. It says how many shots were administered to Biden to keep him awake, and it was 1, 2, 3, or all of them. 86.9% said all of them.
All of them. Yeah. What is the concoction they're shooting up with?
6,600 people voted on that. Almost 6,700.
I want to know what they're shooting them up with. What is the concoction? What sort of?
Do you not remember when POTUS said that to him, and when they had that debate, when he said, "You should be thanking the military that you're even standing here right now."
Yeah.
That's to me when he made that comment. It's something about that comment. I thought, because guess who's going to have the most medical advances in order to, that they're not going to tell us about, but the elite all get to have. To me, that would be the military.
The military, the deep underground mining military bases, the clowns and that, and creating replica people and what-offs, you name it.
Well, I don't know. I need to leave y'all with something funny though. I'm gonna try and get my little funny video thing. See if I can't. Hang on. I'm sorry. This last question.
Where's Sunny Days when you need her?
I have a few things pulled. I'm sorry. Oh, that was that one where he said he was going to be in trouble. Did you see this video where he said it whenever he said he was going to take a question, but he was going to be in trouble? Did y'all see this?
India, they're suffering at
What do you
this
say to
moment.
the folks in
Will
India?
you make it?
I'm sorry. This is the last question I'll take, and I'm really going to be in trouble.
India, they're suffering.
He's going to be in trouble with who? Who's he gonna be in trouble with? The handlers?
Yeah, he can't go off script. Everything's
Oh,
scripted.
here's this one. This one's hilarious. Okay, y'all might have seen it, but I think this is worth leaving you guys with after what we just had to endure. This is flipping funny and would never be allowed nowadays.
Have you ever been face to face with a police officer and wondered, is he about to kick my ass? Well, wonder no more. If you follow these easy tips, you'll be fine. First, obey the law. Laws were made for a reason. Think of them as hints. You've heard people say, man, I wouldn't do that shit if I was you. Well, here's some of that shit. Carjacking, armed robbery, arson, selling drugs, buying drugs, stabbing, shooting. You know, you probably won't get your ass kicked if you just use common sense. If you jump a subway turnstile, you might just get off with a warning from the police. But if you jump a turnstile carrying a loaded gun and smoking a joint, then maybe you need your ass kicked. Follow the simple tip. When you see flashing police lights in your mirror, stop immediately.
Police coming straight from the underground.
Here's a no-brainer. If you're listening to loud rap music, turn that shit off. Blasting "fuck the police" while you're getting pulled over by the police is just ignorant. When an officer approaches your car, be polite.
Is there a problem, officer?
And stay in your car with your hands on the wheel.
What the fuck you want, motherfucker?
Want to give a friend a ride? Not so fast. Your friend might be crazy. Now, before you let your friend in your car, ask him these questions. Do you have a gun? Do you have drugs? Do you have any warrants? And in case you do get pulled over by the cops,
License and registration, please.
remind your friend to do this one thing. Shut the fuck up.
Man, don't give him shit. What the fuck you want?
Here's a tip you should never forget. If your woman is mad at you, leave her at home. Because a mad woman will say anything.
He got weed! He got weed!
If your woman is mad at you, there's nothing she'd like to see more than you getting your ass kicked. Now let's review. Obey the law. Use common sense. Stop immediately. Turn that shit off. Be polite. Shut the fuck up. And last but not least, don't ride with a mad woman. If you follow these simple pointers, you probably won't get your ass kicked by the police.
I found that flipping hilarious when I found it. I mean, just think about how much sense that makes, right? And then how much trouble he would be in if that's just common sense. But oh no, like what happened with Tyler Perry? Just what happened with Tyler Perry at the Oscars? He just simply told people not to hate, and that he didn't hate all white people, hate all black people, hate all Asian people. He wasn't gonna hate all police, and the left lost their damn minds on him.
Well, and if worse comes to worse.
Run, big brother, you like this milk! Run, big brother, you like this milk!
There you go.
There you go. All right. Well, I don't want to keep y'all much longer. I know this was impromptu stream. I just felt the need that, we needed to hear what he had to say. And thanks for hanging out with us. I know it's hard sometimes to listen to him babble on, but, I think it was important that we kind of see what was going on. We knew it wasn't going to be easy. All right. You got anything else you want to say before we cut out of here?
Everybody's asking for the link to the clip he had of Chris Rock, if you can drop that in chat.
Oh, hold on. Let me go get it again. Write it down now. It's a Twitter link, but I'll be glad to copy the link to that.
Somebody must have remade it relatively quick, given some of the more recent stabbing, shootings.
No, this is an old clip Chris Rock did back in the day.
Well, go back to the very beginning of that thing, because they just had the stabbing that occurred with that, what's her name? Bryant, that was in there. So they had to have remade it.
Oh, yeah. I see what you mean, where they inserted it into this.
Yeah.
But I mean, the video overall,
Yeah, the voice,
did that long time
the
ago.
voiceover, but the clips in that, they inserted some of the newer stuff.
Well, there you go. I have shared it to you guys. I think I'm trying to get over here. Yep, there's my YouTube peeps. There we go. There you go. There is your links, folks. Anything else you want to say before we out of here?
Oh, who knows? We may have a show in the next couple days before Sunday. You never know. Stay tuned.
All right, guys. Thanks for coming. Thanks for hanging out. And thanks for enduring that kind of crap. But we will see you guys when we see you. You know, we always go live here whenever we got something to say. So we have no set schedule here except for Wednesdays and Sundays. And with that, we will talk to you guys later. Say goodbye, Breaking.
Goodbye, Breaking.